A lot of people ask about my story. I am not a therapist. What I am is human, and I've been through some things, and people want to know how I got through it. And so that's what I'm going to share with you now. I was born in a one-room cabin with no running water or electricity. I was potty trained in an outhouse. I took showers in the meadow and the creek because my parents were hippies. And we lived in the middle of nowhere, so my only friends were a dog and my sheep. That does make for an interesting perspective when you grow up like that, because I was not aware of a lot of cultural norms, but it did allow me to be creative and have a lot of freedom. It wasn't until my junior year in high school, I had an English teacher who was so amazing, and she pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of acting?" And I didn't know anything about it. So I was like, I haven't, but I'll try it. So that same English teacher took me to a competition. It was my very first acting experience, and when I look back, I was pretty horrible. But what happened was one of the judges came up to me afterwards and said, "How long have you been acting?" And I said, "Today." So she told me about this program through the Ashland Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon. And so I applied for it and I got in. And so that was my first experience with acting. And I thought, oh my goodness, I love this. I ended up getting married after college, and with my first husband, right after we got married, he was like, "Hey, I don't really like this acting thing." So I actually didn't act for 15 years. In the meantime, I had two beautiful children that I love, and I was really kind of a stay-at-home mom, but I taught acting on the side. When I turned 30 years old, my first husband was diagnosed with a very severe illness, and in a matter of a few months, our whole life was turned upside down. He was so ill, he was no longer able to work. And for the next 3 years, I would work 2 or 3 jobs at a time, just trying to keep the bills and everything afloat, sometimes 70, 80 hours a week. And sometimes in life, we have moments where we're just surviving. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't cry for those 3 years, not once. And I remember thinking to myself, I think that's really unhealthy. And so I went into my closet and tried to make myself cry, and nothing. And it was because we just get in that survival mode where you just do what you've got to do. Unfortunately, that marriage ended. It began to affect him mentally, and I needed to leave for the safety of myself and my children. While I was going through the divorce, I had started a nonprofit to teach kids the arts. And it was right before my divorce was final. I stepped on a rusty nail while we were building a musical theater set. And it healed fine. Nothing happened. 3 weeks later, the day that my divorce was final, I started not feeling well. My husband had the house. And so I went to sign the paperwork over to the house for him, and I don't remember much after that. And I ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks, and I almost died. What happened was the bacteria from the nail had gotten into my bloodstream and settled into some bones and things in my back, and I had gone into septic shock. So I had the moment where I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I think I'm dying. And I had couple of thoughts. I had the first one that you always hear about, which is you always wish you had spent more time with the people you loved, that life really is about relationships. The second thought was I thought, that's it? Like, you just work and strive really hard and you stress and you worry and then you just die? And I was mad. I was very disappointed. And the third thing was that I had felt like I had wasted so much of my life being a people pleaser, where I was trying to fit into people's boxes and not being who I was, especially after that freedom childhood and then coming into real society. I wasn't sure where I fit. And the truth is, none of us fit. That's the truth that I've learned the hard way. But when I left the hospital, I couldn't walk. And I couldn't get back to work in time because I couldn't walk. And so I ended up losing my job. And those people I had worked with for 7 years, and they were my support system. So basically, in 3 weeks' time, I had lost my home, I'd lost my marriage, I'd lost my health, I lost my ability to walk and take care of my children, I lost my support system, and I lost all my financial security. And so it was like my whole life was just severed. And I never quite felt right afterwards. And since then, the infection has come back 5 different times. I'm written up in the New England Journal of Medicine because my case is so strange. I've had several operations and been on lots of different treatments and so forth. And through that, I really began to struggle. It was the 3rd time that I almost died, and I fell apart after that because I had a positive attitude up until then of like, I can do this, and it's just a season, and I'm going to get healthy. And the 3rd time that infection came back, and I ended up back in the hospital, and they're like, you almost died. I was like, then why am I here? And I ended up going through a very dark period for 1.5 years of depression. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from almost dying so much. And it was through that journey that I just had to make a lot of decisions, a lot of choices, in small choices to gradually walk myself out, which we'll learn through the course. So here's the thing, is that my story used to be unique. But after 2020, it's so many people's stories because whoever you are, someone, or it could be you, who has experienced rapid change that you did not have control over. People have lost their health. They've lost homes. They've lost jobs. They've lost their finances. Relationships have struggled. And their support system that they used to go out and spend time with is also gone. And it's out of their control, just like it was out of my control. So if you find yourself in that situation, or you know people in that situation, I really encourage you to watch all the videos and keep going, because I'm going to share with you just some things that I did that helped get through, because you can do this.